A few months late to the party with this one, aren't I? It's fine. It's called being fashionably late, just like me and my dad's funeral. I played it a few months back and I really enjoyed it. It was a nice, short and sweet adventure. Lots of people praise the characterization of Sonic in the cast, and rightfully so. They are pretty enjoyable here. But I noticed that whenever people talk about the gameplay, it's usually as though it's some kind of footnote. Like, I understand why. It's a mystery visual novel game. The interactive elements is not the deepest in the world. Hell, even for a mystery novel standards, it's pretty simplistic, since it was made so that young kids could play through it fine without getting frustrated because they can't find every minute contradiction. But despite that, I still thought it would be interesting to examine how they handled the whole setup of having the player make their way through a mystery and figuring things out themselves. Because I have come to realize that there's actually a lot of little things that go into the games like this to help to make the process a lot easier. Okay, so a quick plot synopsis just so we're all on the same page. You play as this guy who you get to name. I don't think I could show my face around here if I wrote that. I don't think you should be showing your face at all. Sonic and friends set up a birthday party for Amy. It's a murder mystery party and everyone gets assigned roles. Everyone scatters throughout the train, but then it crashes. Sonic is found dead, and now it's our job to find out who done it. We go from cart to cart, getting testimonies and stories from the others, slowly piecing everything together. After everything, we make it to the front to reveal the culprit, Espio. He killed Sonic by using a secret passage in one of the carts to make his way to the front, kill him, and then one of the arms moves Sonic's body to the front as Espio makes his way back. And everything that happens afterwards is irrelevant, forget about it. I skimmed a lot, but this isn't really about the story. It's about how the game tries to get us to unravel it all. I just thought that letting you guys know the basics would make certain things easier to explain later on. I think I'll go ahead and get the think sections out of the way first, since they're kind of disconnected from the rest of the solving the case half. Anytime you present evidence or find some kind of contradiction, you'll play these isometric auto runners where you have to dodge obstacles and collect a certain amount of rings before you reach the end. I was a little put off by this at first. It was kind of like Danganronpa where they have mini games for you to progress, but honestly it kind of grew on me after a while. Isometric gameplay hasn't exactly treated Sonic well in the past, but I think it's well utilized here. This kind of angle means that the sprites are always consistent. It's not like the half pipe where they artificially zoom in on the rings and it's kind of hard to tell how close you are to them. It's a lot more clear this way. Another reason is that here you're only moving Sonic left and right, which makes it easy to react to the upcoming obstacles and an easier time-to-time jumps, since the speed in each level you play stays consistent throughout. I especially love how these think levels tie into the ending where you chase down the train and it ramps up in difficulty. It's really exciting. I enjoyed it a lot. Okay, let's take a quick look at how this game handles this kind of gameplay. It's like Ace Attorney, but very, very streamlined. You don't have a penalty system. The game is very lenient when it comes to tossing out evidence you don't need. You're never going to have something like 20 pieces in your possession, so you only ever have a few options to pick from at a time. There aren't multiple statements to comb through either. When a character says something of interest, Tails will come along and be like,
"Wait a minute!"
and tell you to present evidence you need to disprove it. It's super linear, but as I said, this game is made for young children, so I don't really mind them streamlining things at all. The actual connecting the dots and the contradictions still falls on the player, so it's not like you don't use any brainpower to figure things out. You still need to look at your evidence and compare it to the statement at hand. I'm a bit embarrassed to admit, though, that when I got to the end and they asked me who I thought the culprit was, I kinda didn't know. It was probably just me being stupid. I do tend to be very forgetful. Once I forgot the name of a license plate once. And a garbage disposal. I once even forgot my dad and accidentally left him in North Korea. That's why I was late to his funeral. But I do think if there's one thing the game can do better, it's laying out certain information a lot more clearly. I mean, it's not like they don't do that. For example, when a very important point is brought up, they highlight the word so that it sticks into your mind easier. Tails also likes to clarify a lot and make sure that you're following along. But there still are some things I think they could have conveyed better. I think the main one is when they're showing us the characters and how they were moving throughout the carts in the train. The map is kind of laid out in a zigzaggy fashion as a way to fit it all in one small format, but I think it kind of muddies it a bit. It would have been better if they just put it in a straight line that you could probably scroll across. Sure, it wouldn't fit all in one screen, but I think it would have been easier to remember which order the carts are set in. Another one is that when they have it up and they show the characters move, rather than dragging the icons from one cart to the other, they just kind of teleport like Gary trying to avoid a bath. Not only that, but their positions aren't always consistent. They might be on the bottom left in this cart, but when they move them here, they're now on the top right. These seem like small and almost meaningless things to talk about. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if many people didn't really find this an issue and was able to remember things perfectly fine. But if there's one thing that human memory is known for, is that it's being unable to remember minor details accurately. That's why presenting the information clearly is so important in a mystery game like this. The last thing you want is a player getting confused because they forgot a key detail. Another thing that I was thinking of bringing up is, in other mystery visual novels, they aren't afraid to continuously hammer in certain points and show you flashbacks to important events. events. They aren't satisfied with just shining a light on it, they gotta flicker it like a mom trying to wake up their child. But the more I thought about it, having flashbacks in a game like this probably would have been a bit overboard. It's only 2 hours long. The flashbacks you see in something like Ace Attorney games are mostly here in between chapters when it's safe to assume that you took a break and you might need to be reminded of certain things when you come back. The Murder of Needle Mouse, though, is a game that's meant to be beaten in one sitting, so these flashbacks wouldn't exactly have been the most necessary thing in the world. But aside from that, overall, I think they handled everything pretty well here. It's very simplified, but for good reason. I could totally see this being the first visual novel mystery game that a kid would play. I think with some tweaks to how some of the information is presented, I think it would be pretty much perfect. I know some people might see my complaints as a little over-exaggerated, like how is it the developer's problem that I can't remember shit? But I still don't think there's any harm in doing it the way I suggested. It's kind of important that these kind of games are designed for the player to beat, so trying to compensate for people who might struggle, I think is important. Yeah, some games can get a little overboard with it. Dual Destinies is heavily criticized for never letting you figure things out for yourself, and Apollo Justice has a fetish for flashbacks like you wouldn't believe. There's certainly a balance there. You want to be clear without being obvious. And even though I think the whole display of the train carts and the movements could have been more clear, I still do appreciate that they went through the effort of providing a visual aid of any kind. Could you imagine if they just explained this all through text alone? It would feel like you're sitting in a geography class where the teacher lost the map. This whole video is just me kind of admitting how stupid I am, isn't it? I remember at one point in school they showed us this video for April Fools where his penguin's flying, and I believed it. I showed it to my dad and he laughed at me right before I left him in North Korea.